The man who had masterminded De Valera's stunning escape had been a junior participant in the Easter Rising. He was a shadowy young man with swagger, organizational genius, and a taste for action.
Michael Collins was the young, sexy, brilliant leader of the IRA. He was really the person who put together an actual military machine. De Valera was the bearer of the myth, if you like, and Collins was the practical organizer and strategist of the movement. And in the early days, that was a perfect combination.
Michael Collins was still in his 20s when he mobilized the newly formed Irish Republican Army. He was known as the big fella, cycling around Dublin, organizing. He was a popular figure in the De Valera household, where he paid weekly visits, bringing news to Sinead of her husband in America. But the playful family friend was developing a viciously effective new strategy: modern, urban, guerrilla warfare. His hand-picked squad assassinated detectives, which in turn led to harsh reprisals by the British Black and Tans.
He was the leader of Sinn Féin and the IRA, and he was the leader of the military wing of the revolutionary struggle. And I think De Valera had difficulty dealing with that.
Because everything in control. They haven't an idea where next they're going to be struck. And the big fella, he said, is still in total charge, fit and well.
Men. They disagreed profoundly over military strategy. De Valera disliked Michael Collins' brand of urban terrorism. In May 1921, he committed the IRA to a traditional military action, an all-out attack on the Dublin Custom House. It was a disaster. The Dublin IRA were utterly routed. Nearly 80 men were captured and 5 were killed. Collins was furious. George agreed to call a truce. There was an atmosphere of fevered anticipation as De Valera set off for Downing Street. He seemed poised to deliver an Anglo-Irish treaty that would give Ireland true self-government and then return to lead the new nation. Yet what followed was infighting and a squalid war of Irishmen against Irishmen that wrecked.
He had this kind of Catholic
Free state, giving Ireland the status of a dominion, like Canada. But De Valera knew his supporters wanted a full republic and would regard anything less as a sellout.
It's fair to say De Valera knew that compromises were going to have to be made.
When they discussed sending a delegation, De Valera told the cabinet, we must have scapegoats.
De Valera would send others to make concessions in the bruising negotiations with Lloyd George. From his aloof position in Dublin, he could then add some of his own Republican finishing touches to the treaty and emerge with his presidential reputation untarnished. Michael Collins was pressed to join the delegation.
Michael refused to go. He argued very strongly and very forcefully with them. But he was persuaded to go. I'm set up, he said. And you know bloody well he's setting me up.
But things did not turn out as expected. Collins and the delegates went ahead and signed
Of the treaty had become the first person in Irish history ever to be able to come back and say, we've got a state. And I think De Valera, in his own mind, had always figured himself out to be that person.
The gap between the two men widened. The difference focused not on Irish partition, but on the oath of allegiance to the British Crown that the Free State Parliament would have to swear. That little sentimental thing, De Valera called it. But the fight over it split them. Dublin's Four Courts building was occupied by hardliners who won Free State. The war of brother against brother had begun. The Irish Civil War was more brutal and destructive than the last 3 years of conflict with the British had ever been. Hundreds died in the villages and country lanes. This time, De Valera was on the losing side. Though he was still the political leader of the anti-treaty forces, they increasingly ignored his attempts to negotiate a solution. He had helped to start the war. Now, marginalized and exhausted,